czy innej podróży.
Witam Państwa serdecznie.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have been just talking about the resilient state, and now we will be talking about cities. The resilient city is the resilient state. The resilient city will be developed if we manage to develop a resilient urban ecosystem where we balance our resources. This will be the ecosystem resources, social resources, and economic ones. Under this panel, we will be addressing the concept of the 15-minute city, developed by one of our today's guests, Carlos Moreno. This concept has become a part of the narrative used by mayors of different mayors in the world. Anna Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, has disseminated this model during her election campaign, and she is implementing it during her second term of office. So it's about thinking about the city's development. To begin with, I've got a question to all the panelists. Then I will give the floor to Moreno to tell us about the concept of the 15-minute city. But first I would like to introduce the guest, Carlos Moreno, the creator and the propagator of the 15-minute city, professor, university professor, a researcher, the expert in cities of tomorrow. He's internationally recognized by his innovative views on urban development. He's talking about human and smart city, 15-minute city, or the 30-minute area city. In 2022, together with such organizations as When Habitat, United Cities and Local Government, he is managing the start of the Global Observatory of Sustainable Distances during the World City Forum. Another guest, I'm sure you all know her, and it's the mayor of the city of Łódź, Hanna Zdanowska. I would like to stress that Madam Mayor is under her fourth term of office. She completed environmental engineering at the Łódź University of Technology. After her studies, she was building residential areas, Redkinia and Radogoszcz in Łódź. So from the very beginning of her career, she was very experienced in development of urban tissue. She's an MP to the Parliament of Poland. From the Civic Platform, she was performing the function of the Vice Chair of the Committee of Friendly Cities. She was responsible for the matters in terms of reducing bureaucracy. She is a member of the European Committee of Regions and the Green Deal Going Local group. She's the ambassador of Pact for Climate and the ambassador for the agreement, cooperation among mayors. She introduced many solutions to improve the life quality in Łódź, and she's going to share her perspective as the leader of these changes. And our last guest, Mr. Waldemar Olbryk, an initiator of the new approach to city development. And he is dealing with property sector. He's the president of the Archicom company. He is the member of the Royal Society of the Arts, Manufacture and Commerce, initiated of the projects that combine different groups. He is also a co-creator of debates of artists, businessmen and academics during the festival Sound Edit. This festival is held here in Łódź. He also delivers classes for music managers. He's also a member of the Responsible Business Forum. I have a question related with the main theme of our panel, that is the city for people. The 15-minute city is the city for people. How do you understand the city that is focused on people, and how your work has contributed to create such space? Madam Mayor, the floor is yours. First of all, good afternoon. I'm very happy that I can take part in the panel with Carlos. I have never thought that I would have such a meeting with him. Many inspirations for me are based on the teachings of Carlos. So hopefully I will follow the path that has been developed by Carlos. So thank you for this. So I would like to thank you cordially. You are an inspiration, a direction to us, and you are the inspiration and road and direction for our inhabitants who can change the city together with us, because the city means its inhabitants. So to me, the biggest challenge concerning my work is the cooperation with inhabitants. So I've been doing it all my working life, and sometimes this cooperation is not ideal, and the opinions we hear from inhabitants are well listened to. So it's the continuous dialogue is very important to me. I take part in many meetings with my inhabitants. I want to hear from them how we should develop the city. I ask them about services for citizens. So these are our intentions. If we want to live in a great city, the decisions should be influenced by the citizens. But when we're making decisions, we have to feel responsible for them. So we have to be responsible for the consequences of the decisions. So my dream is that the residents, the inhabitants, receive as much authority as possible. Of course, we cannot give them 100% of this, because we as the local government have to implement some changes, but we have to do it based on the expectations of our inhabitants. So now it is different. Before there was just single election, single vote for the mayor, and then all the decisions of the mayor were deemed to be community decisions. So now when we choose the mayor, we want to have the person who will make decisions based on the inspirations of the city's inhabitants. Waldemar? Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel together with Professor Carlos. We've been colleagues for many years. We always discussing this phenomenon Mrs. Mayer has mentioned. I also know Madam Mayer from the times when a Manufactura project was developed. So I remember we were talking with Carlos, we were talking about the work of developers. Of course, we buy land, we design, then we sell properties, but we also have to consider what will happen to our products once we are absent. Yesterday, when we were coming from Warsaw to Łódź, I was trying to tell the professor about Łódź. I was telling him about history. We were also covering the history of Paris. So I wanted to make this comparison. It was quite a challenge, but we found some common areas. So we both smiled, and we were saying that the work of developers and this group of people who are present in the panel, it's about thinking of the future and to design the urban lifestyle. Churchill used to say that first we develop buildings and then the buildings develop us. So this is what happens when we buy land, when we build properties, then we adapt the function. So it's not that we think only about the past. We have to respect the past, but we have to think of the future, to design the buildings in such a way that the living standard is good, that some spaces where people meet will be created. And something that is important both to Paris and to Łódź. Recently, we conducted an analysis of the life cycle of a building. It's not about the building. It just shows how the buildings function during the period of 60 years. So it's very important that we take the perspective of the city user. And yesterday, we agreed with Carlos that we are in the city lifestyle. So that's all from me.
Mr. Moreno, I'm very happy actually to be here. I'm a practitioner, so I could have possibility to try to introduce the concept of 15-minute city in the city of Warsaw. However, what really intrigues me, you always underline that your experience lies in the math and computer science. You are a mathematician. How can both this discipline influence quality of life in our city? Why proximity is so important in our life? Could you please ask more about the concept of 50-minute city? And I will invite you to show the presentation to everyone. And could we please get now the presentation? Czy można prosić o wyświetlenie prezentacji? I will invite you to the...
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this kind invitation. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. Thank you, Madam Mayor of Łódź, for your presence, your interest in this topic. Thank you to my friend Waldemar for this relationship, very, very nice for several years. I will share with you for less than 15 minutes my 15-minute city concept. And I wanted to evoke this worldwide concept that I said very often at the beginning of my conferences that the 50-minute city concept, even if it's a very worldwide popular concept, the number of minutes is really not important. We have a lot of different implementation of this concept around the world. The 10-minute Utrecht in Netherlands, the 20-minute neighborhood in Melbourne in Australia, the 20-minute territory in Scotland, the complete neighborhood in a lot of different continents, the vital neighborhood. The most important point today is to develop this new lifestyle based on a proximity with shorter distances for fostering a decarbonized mobility and to implement a new business model for offering a lot of different services in proximity for revigorating our neighborhood and to develop more social interactions in our cities. I am a mathematician, computer scientist, and I have started this research in 2010, 14 years ago. Today, this is no more a theoretical concept. This is today a reality worldwide. And one of the characteristics of this concept is our capability for managing different kind of implementations, regardless of size, of density of cities and territories. We have found today this concept implemented in a lot of different big regions. This is the case in Scotland. This is a country belong the UK. But at the same time, even in realities, including in Poland, the city, the small town of Pleszowa, close to Poznan, with the mayor Arkadiusz Ptak, is a very, very concrete implementation in a very small territory of this concept. We have today around the world the most important international organization of mayors, C40 cities. Warsaw is a member of this international global network of cities for fighting against climate change. UCLG, the oldest international organization of mayors. UN Habitat, the United Nations division in charge of cities. And even if I have received a lot of different awards in urbanism and architecture, my favorite award is this one. When I received in October 2022 the Scroll of Honors by UN Habitat. This is my favorite award because this is not the Carlos Moreno Award. This is the 15-Minute City Global Initiative Award. This concept is no more my personal concept. This is no more my scientific contribution. This is today a global initiative. This concept is your concept, the concept of mayors, the concept of president of metropolises, regions, the concept of scientists around the world, the concept as well of a lot of different stakeholders, including private sector, for transforming our cities. I'm very proud of that to have started this initiative for transforming our cities. Of course, my book are today translated in more than 10 languages. Yesterday, we have launched my Japanese version of this concept. But this is not only a academic or research work. Today, in our continent, in Europe, we have launched by the European Union this cluster, Driving Urban Transition. This is the cluster for fostering the different collaborative projects in the 27 countries of the European Union and including 3 or 4 different guest countries. For the 4th year, we have this cluster for contributing to funding these different initiatives. Recently, in May 2024, my colleagues of the Driving Urban Transitions has launched this book, the best practices of 15-minute cities in Europe. This is the very, very clever book with more than 100 concrete initiatives for illustrating how could we transform our cities. Promise, Waldek, then next time I will include the huge projects. You're very impressed with the different concrete transformations after visiting with Waldek different places in your city. What is the core of this initiative and concept? The core is that we need to develop not only just a housing with a roof, 4 walls. Housing is more than a roof, 4 walls. Housing is, in fact, to access every time, everywhere in a city to well-being, to safety, to gender equity, to social inclusions, to dignity, to urban health. We said with the United Nations Habitat, with the World Urban Campaign, Housing doesn't mean living in the city. Living in the city is in reality to offer every time, everywhere, lot of different services without having a car dependency. For that, we need to prepare an ambitious transformation. The 50-minute city, the happy proximity for having this vision of the X minutes happy proximity is not a magic wand. I discussed with the mayor a few minutes ago. We need step by step to develop these radical transformations. We need to have a urban future for living together in our city. But at the center of this concept is, in fact, to improve the quality of life for inhabitants based on a new relationship between the urban space and the useful time. Jane Jacobs said we need to live in living cities. In a city is alive when we have this possibility in the 21st century to reconcile ecology with economy and social inclusion. For a long time, we have opposed a decarbonized economy, a decarbonized city with the development of the local economy and the development of more livable neighborhood. We need to decarbonize our cities. And for that, we need to allow carbon mobility, active mobility on foot or by bike or by public transportation. And at the same time, we need to develop more local employment, more local activity, more local economy, shorter circuits, to use local raw materials, and at the same time to regenerate our neighborhood, to develop more social interactions. In fact, we need to develop the new local urban plan, the new territorial urban plan for building a more inclusive and healthy cities based by this strategic way in order to revigorate our cities street by street, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood. At the beginning, a lot of people said Carlos Moreno is an utopian researcher because the normal life in our cities is, in fact, to have the long distances, to have the long commute, because this is the reality of our cities in the 21st. In reality, this is new. This is not a fatality. In the second part of the 20th century, we have developed this strong economical inequity. But unfortunately, in a lot of cities around the world, we have the same shape of city based on these two new injustices. The spatial injustice based on this urban segregation with the overcrowded buildings for living so far of the center of the cities. And we have added this temporal injustice with the consequence with this social inclusion. When we need to spend more than 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, including 4 hours, just for a round trip, just for a commute, for having a wage at the end of the month, we will generate this modern social vulnerability. The modern social vulnerability in our cities is this mix of the economical inequities, spatial segregations, and temporal injustice. This is today our target, to develop a really high quality societal life based on not only to have a blue complete services in the historical centers and after to have the red color based on this just a house without the services 10, 15 kilometers far of the historical center. This is the shape of a lot of cities around the world. Urban segregation, time segregation with a lot of distances, long commute in our daily activities. We wanted to develop, to promote this proximity for all in order to implement the 50-minute city concept, the X-minute city concept for fighting against this strong segregation. The 50-minute city concept, the X-minute city concept, is not only to have a low carbon mobility. This is as well to create more social interactions and to develop a new economic business model, including for real estate actors. We need to transform, in reality, our cities based on these 8 main principles. Proximity to essential services. To develop in the urbanism and architecture an organic density for having a gentle density. To develop the mixed uses for avoiding this single function of buildings. To develop public spaces with a high quality. To access to efficient public transportation. To foster a massive active low carbon mobility on foot or by bike. To develop inclusivity. To preserve diversity in cities. And to use those technologies for offering by ubiquity a lot of different services. The question is for each one of us in what kind of city we want to live in. We need to answer for saying, in face with climate change, in face with the heritage with mineral cities, the overcrowded public transportations, in order to preserve the urban health, in order to offer a more human city, we need to have today a city, a lot of different of the heritage of the 20th century. The 20th century was the century of car-centered cities. We need to switch from the car-centered city to a more human city. This is the shape of the city around the world. Le Corbusier said, a city that has a success, a city that moves faster and furious. For that, we have developed a lot of different infrastructures, none for human, none for citizens, none for kids, none for gender equity, male cities for cars, for having this social status, for having an access to the corporate district in permanence. This is the color of a traditional city in the 20th century. Each one of the daily social functions have a color, and we have the color totally separated and segregated. The consequence was to have this long commute for joining one color to another color. With the Nobel Prize, my friend Mohamed Yunus, with the Nobel Prize Paul Krugman, we have developed this concept, a world of 000, a city with 000, zero carbon, zero poverty, zero exclusion. Paul Krugman has proposed with his Nobel Prize, the new economical geography. The 50-minute city, the X-minute city, is a happy polycentric proximity for reinventing this new economical geography in a sustainable proximity. This is the core of our concept. Proximity in the new economical geography is in fact a call, a massive call for transforming the business model in cities, for stopping to continue to build more and more so far buildings for a single use, to develop these mixed uses of buildings, to develop social mixity, and to develop a lot of services in a city. We wanted to promote this polycentric organization, this social circularity for having a real habitability, not only housing. We need to develop the essential services to live in the good conditions, to work in a strong reduction with long commute, to supply, to develop the local commerce, local shops, local employment, to develop more care services, well-being, to develop the access to culture, schools, high schools, universities, the ubiquity for using the digital technologies for more culture and education, and to enjoy in public spaces, safety for fragile people, for kids, for women, for having the public spaces for citizens, dwellers, and none for cars. Our proposal, our strategic proposal, is to build a local urban plan for mixing the different colors in cities. Instead of to continue to develop these separated colors in the tradition of the urbanism of the 20th century, the 21st century, in the 21st century of the rainbow of the high quality societal life. We need to mix the different colors, not as a magic wand, to mix the 2, to mix the 3, to mix the 4, 5, 6 colors in a timeline for a mandature for a strategic plan. This rainbow of the quality of life needs to have a methodology. With my team at Sorbonne University, we have developed this methodology. A methodology based in geodata analysis, 100 meters by 100 meters, and a methodology for having the point of view of inhabitants that live in a city. Geospatial data analysis is the contribution of mathematics and computer science. And at the same time, to listen to citizen dwellers is to have the point of view for developing this social acceptability, for not have the constrained way, but to have these participatory workshops for adapting this way for the different people that live today. We need to develop this social and users mix it within proximity, not for having a smart city, for having just a happy city with happy life in a new geographical, economical, social, and cultural concept. This is the same vision, this is the same methodology with different implementation, and I totally sure that in Poland, in Łódź, we have this great possibility for joining our effort, our best efforts in this humanistic, urbanistic way. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this presentation. This kind of simple slogan, actually it's not so simple, it's a very complex idea. Your idea is implemented all over the world. You mentioned that already we have city in Poland that is 15 million city, a small city of Pleszew, the city of 70,000 inhabitants. Paris has 2 million, which is 650,000. You had some time to look around Łódź. Do you think, what do we really have to do in the short term to become 15-minute city here in Łódź?
Yeah, in the short term, we have a lot of different actions to do. I discussed with Madam Mayor this transformation, in particular for offering access to public spaces, the linear park, the vegetalizations, to transform the public spaces for avoiding to be a car permanent presence in the surface, to transform the industrial heritage in the new mixed use, in the mixed places, to develop the cultural center, the cultural activities. I think that the most difficult point in a lot of different cities, in particular in Central Europe, is our individual car dependency. I think that this is not only a question of the urban policy by mayor. This is a question of our individual mindset. For a long time, we have used that to be important in a city, we need to have a big car. And this is wrong. And we need to change this traditional lifestyle for switching towards a new lifestyle. More sociability, more social interactions, more public space for people, more access to the culture, more local jobs, more local commerce, more local activities for revigorating our neighborhood, for breaking out with the sleeping neighborhood, the sleeping dormitories, for having a real interaction in the city.
Thank you very much. Teraz mam pytanie do...
Now I have a question to you, Waldemar. A 15-minute city requires changes in our behavior, but it also requires innovation. In your practice, How do you balance innovation with the basic needs of the inhabitants? On the one hand, that's the question about what the future is going to look like, especially in the context of the sector that has been successful for so many years. Since it is successful, why should we change it? That's a challenging question. If we want to find the answer among sociologists or those who want to know what the world is going to look like, is the method we use. It's quite engineering-based. It requires new technologies, new materials, but on the other hand, it's strongly based on what we are talking about, namely, what will people need? It's a kind of bet or a kind of risk which you need to accept, as otherwise we will produce Jurassic Parks which will tell stories from the past. If we would like to co-create a city, this is one of the slogans that Mayor Zdanowska had, co-created city. We need to understand in what context we build our products and in what context our product should find the users. It should be experiment-based innovation, but we also need to be storytellers who show how we are going to live in the future. We keep on repeating, we don't have time, we don't have time. I do agree, we need to act here and now, but we deal with urban tissue that sometimes was built several hundred years ago, and our habits are based on it. Some people are anxious that the city was not rebuilt within a weekend. I'd rather live the city because I'm constantly stuck in traffic jams. Cities live with us, they develop with us. So what has happened over the several hundred years, it's a perfect space for urban experiments, for real estate developers, for authorities, and for the inhabitants and users. Right. A city is a process. Madam Mayor, fourth term of office, we can see changes. Honestly speaking, I visited Łódź for the first time in 2010, and now I came back. It's my second time here. It has changed completely, the very city center. And I asked the inhabitants about it. The same applies to suburban areas. 4 terms of office was enough to initiate something and to see the results. So I wanted to ask you about the role of the leader who shapes urban environments. What was the key contributor to win the trust of your voters and inhabitants? I'm not going to tell you a secret by saying that it is owing to a dialogue. Sometimes I was standing for 6-8 hours in front of a group of inhabitants and answering the questions. I listened to the hatred, complaints, and a vision of no future. During my first term of office, initially, the inhabitants didn't have what they needed to co-create the city, meaning the pride of living here. They used to live here because of some habits or lack of other opportunities, rather than because they wanted to be here and that they identified with the city. That was the leader's role, to convince inhabitants that this is the city worth staying, worth living in, that this is the city that listens to one's needs. And it's no secret that we haven't solved many problems. There will be a number of challenges that we need to address. The EU funds and cooperation with business, I am not ashamed of it and I'm not afraid of it, because the city did as much as it could based on the budget. But the city by initiating activities, just like the sparks which are distributed generate fire, and consequently, everything around starts to change and bloom. I know there is still a lot to do, that there are places where we need renovation and reconstruction of infrastructure. The city was built at the turn of the 19th century. It was not destroyed during the Second World War. When it comes to infrastructure, I do not mean people, because we lost a huge part of our population. But Łódź has been the city, or was the city, which until the system transformation was exploited, but nothing new happened here. So the problems we're facing are the ones which date back to centuries ago, because most of our tenement houses have not been renovated since they were constructed. Most streets were not streets according to the building law, but they were only hard surface roads, then roads with cobblestone covered with several layers of asphalt, and it was with asphalt pavement, and it was called a street. So we had to implement thorough modifications, which are onerous for inhabitants, but they are indispensable to undergo transition.
I remember when we decided to restore, the biggest issue in Łódź was to restore the functioning of the inner city. It was the most degraded tissue, and it required a lot of efforts. We had to sacrifice the welfare of the inhabitants of this part of the city. Many inhabitants of the inner city moved out, and there was a huge problem with the municipal properties. Many of the palaces, of the tenement buildings were in ruin, but people's energy allowed it to be restored. So the leader has to listen to the inhabitants. It's not about the flock that is to follow the leader. The leader is to identify the directions, but the directions are provided by the inhabitants. So it has to be our common vision and our common direction of actions. So the results are very visible. I know that within the next 2 weeks, the Liberty Square and the Orientarium Zoological Park, you received an award. Green Building Arts Association granted the award for environmentally friendly solutions. So if we do something, we do it for the future generations. It has to ensure the quality of life. Inhabitants must feel that these investments will be sustainable, that on the one hand, they will provide great emotions because it's about building the community spirit, but on the other hand, there will be some investments that will be quite neutral to the environment, or the impacts on the environment will be minor. So we want to restore such assets as these animals that become extinct species. So all the changes, all the global changes have to be under control. I mean the negative changes. So hopefully, if we succeed, these species again will live in their natural habitats. So the nature is most valuable, something that the inhabitants of Łódź can be proud of.
Moreno, we are talking about leadership, but leadership is not only going top-down, can go bottom-up. And here, how the leadership can be shared in more horizontal way in the city planning process.
Yes, thank you. This is a very good question. We need to develop in the 21st century in face with our issues in cities, a new kind of leadership. In fact, we need a leadership embodied by the local governors, the mayor, in this case, of cities. And for that, this leadership is a new kind of leadership because we need to have a vision. We need to decarbonize our cities. We need more livable neighborhood. We need to revigorate our street, no more for cars, but for humans. We need to take very often the unpopular measures. We need to be, as mayor in the leadership governance, determined. We need to have some courage for taking this kind of measures. When the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, has decided to, for example, cancel cars for transforming the motor highway along the Seine River, it was very unpopular measure, but it was the really totally necessary measure for avoiding to have these traffic jams 300 kilometers in the center of the city. By capability, it was a very complicated measure for Paris, but at the same time, today, we have more than 1,200 kilometers of protected bike lines. This is the first point. The second point, we need to create a new leadership with the citizen dwellers. We need to promote this citizens' participation. In Paris, Anne Hidalgo has developed the participatory budget. The participatory budget, this is 20% of the city budget for citizens in order to submitting the local projects in a different district funded by the city. This is a mechanism for increasing the citizen participation. The democracy in cities is not only to vote every 4 years or 5 years. The local democracy is, in fact, to promote the concrete local participation of citizens in the daily activities. This is not enough to say my mayor is not good or my mayor is bad. No, the concrete transformation of our cities is to have the positive, collaborative participation. And for that, to submit the concrete projects as the participatory budget, it was a really concrete transformation. And the third point, we need to develop an ambitious educative program. The mayor of Paris said the transformation with the 50-minute city is totally related to a motto. The school is the capital of my district. We have decided to open the schoolyards during the weekend for using this space into the school as a public space. And we have decided the first measure to connect the schoolyards into the schools with the streets in front of schools. For banning cars in front of schools, it will transform in mini park. We have 280 schools in Paris. We have today 280 mini parks connected to inside the school of the schoolyards. And today, we have created 208 new public space, green areas, with a lot of different equipments for kids, for elderly people, for parents, for grandparents. And this is a very concrete new leadership for mixing the local governance, so urban policy with the vision, and to propose the new mechanisms for integrating the local citizen participation.
Yeah, it is great solution to improve and safety for children and other users of the city, and as well access to parks. But now I would like to know a little bit perspective of a business. Tutaj pytanie do pana Waldemara.
This is a question to Waldemar. How can you, under the development-related processes, how can you invite the citizens to take part in these processes? Inviting the inhabitants to take part in the processes is quite hard. Our role in this process, in the classical manner, is that we are looking for the land, for good idea to develop this land. Then we purchase the land, we design the property, we build it, and then we sell it. And after so it takes about 8 years how our project are implemented. But we're trying to invite the citizens from the very beginning. In Archicom and in the ECO group, we are always considering how we should proceed to make sure that we keep our promise. If somebody decided to trust us, we have to keep our promise. We have to check whether it really works. So we conduct an analysis of satisfaction of our users. For example, we had a situation in Warsaw in one of the projects. We will also have the same approach in Lodz. So we introduced some gardens, gardens, allotments among the blocks. And initially we thought that people will not know what to do about these plots of lands. And Mayor Zdanowska asked me, aren't you afraid that people will not know what they should do with these gardens? And we had a kind of a facilitator, someone who showed people what they could do with this land. So we felt very responsible to make sure that the user finds our idea useful and attractive. So there is a team in our company that can confirm that we are learning on our mistakes or success achieved during the previous projects, and we also make sure that our homework is done, and we do it as fast as possible. So we are using this loop where we address the perspective of the future users. It's not an easy task because educating within the organization is quite difficult. So in my sector, people like to claim, well, let's do it like we did it before. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's not keep working the same way if everything is working. But I love to listen to the user. Thank you very much. How do you assess the cooperation with the local administration, local government? I can say like a lawyer, it depends, but in which we have a great cooperation. Madam Mayor is not afraid of collaborating with business. Thanks to this cooperation, we can support one another good, and also sometimes we're having some conflicts, but conflicts can be also teaching experience. So we support each other. Everything has to be done based on the rules of law. We also have to be very practical. Once we have to complete the negotiation period. So we just have to start doing something, and we decide that this is the time to stop negotiations. So the key to good cooperation between a private developer whose mission is to make money, and then on the other hand, the other partner is the city. The city has to take care of its perspective. So we have to be transparent. We really have to be very open about our intentions. So we have to have the joint agenda. So it requires a skill, the skill of listening and co-creating. Thank you very much.
I have the last question to Mr. Moreno, and actually I would like you to advise something to the mayor of Łódź. In Poland we are facing a lot of challenges regarding environmental issues. We still prefer to move from A to B by our individual cars, some of us. What kind of communication strategy you would advise to Mayor Zdanowska to convince citizens to leave their cars and choose other mobility options while commuting in everyday life?
This is today one of the points at the center of our urban transformation. I think that this is not only the responsibility of Madam Mayor for managing this transformation. The responsibility, of course, of Madam Mayor is to offer a perspective for a more livable city. In this way, we need to accelerate these decentralizations of city to offer more services for revigorating our neighborhood. In the city of Paris, the Mayor Hidalgo launched 10 years ago a very ambitious project, Reinventing Paris. Reinventing Paris was an ambitious plan for selecting 22 unused areas in different points of the city for generating a dialogue with the private sector, real estaters, and to regenerate the new project based on mixed uses for transforming former abandoned factories, technical power plant, the administrative buildings, in order to regenerate for developing the mixed uses. This was a very, very ambitious program, 22 new, in fact, districts. This was a way for offering more local services. And at the same time, we have offered to citizen dwellers more walkability with green areas and protected bike-lines. But this is not enough. We need at the same time to develop, in particular to the young people, this new education for transforming our mindset. And for that, we have created, for example, the Climate Academy. The Climate Academy, this is a new pedagogical project in Paris for having the new place totally free of charges for educating young people in the concrete actions for implementing this new decarbonized lifestyle. We need to develop this triple convergence, the local governance, to convince the stakeholders and the private sector for transforming a business model in a more mixed uses of the decarbonized model, and at the same time to foster citizen dwellers and young people for switching our mindset, our daily behavior.
Okay, thank you very much. Paris is changing dramatically at least city center. So you could, in the streets that used to be like 2-3 lanes of cars, now the places for cyclists, for pedestrian and for greenery, and still it's possible to move from A to B, even in the city center by car. Our time is ending. I would like to thank you very much, all the guests. I think we learned a lot about leadership, about how to change our cities step by step, and how different actors can be involved in the process. I think we can learn a lot from 15-minute city. It has different perspectives from social, ecological to city building functions. Thank you very much one more time. Pani Prezydent.
Mrs. Mayor Hanna Zdanowska, Mr. Carlos Moreno, and Mr. Waldemar Olbryk. My name is Monika, Konrad. Thank you very much for this meeting.
Jedzą kanapki z kawiorem.
Nadzwyczajna kasa.
Obrażanie dziennikarzy telewizji polskiej.
Chodzi o działania polityczne.
Przygotowanie ofiar dla pedofilów.
Für Deutschland.
TVP Info. Włącz się na nowo.
Radość, nadzieja, życie, wyzwanie, pasja, pamięć, zaufanie, pokój, jedność. Słowa tworzą świat. Polskie Radio. Źródło wiarygodnych informacji.
Plany biznesowe powstają z marzeń. Dlatego nie ma dwóch takich samych firm. Jedni chcą działać na całym świecie. Innym cały świat mieści się w dłoni. Sukces biznesu to nie tylko jego wielkość, ale też szczęście, jakie przynosi ludziom. PKO Bank Polski.
Uwielbiam szycie w sieci. Wczoraj podszyłem się pod wnuczka, wieczorem uszyłem intrygę na apce randkowej, a dziś planuję grubymi nićmi szyte oszustwo z promocją. Tak się szyje.
Na oszustów są sposoby. Zapoznaj się z poradami ekspertów na niedajsiepodszyć.pl.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Polskie Radio.
Jedynka.
Rodzina spółek Pelion to 12 tysięcy osób pracujących w ponad 300 spółkach w Polsce, Szwecji, Wielkiej Brytanii i na Litwie. Jesteśmy liderem w branży ochrony zdrowia. Od 1990 roku dbamy o długość i jakość życia. Pracować z nami możesz w jednym z 7 obszarów.
Dziś Nowy Jork, jutro Londyn. Za chwilę Paryż, Warszawa, Berlin. Na całym świecie kultura pulsuje rytmem. Wystarczy tylko włączyć 2. 2. Polskie Radio. Jesteś na miejscu.